course I'm going to talk about today is eBusiness 101. It's Teamwork Fundamentals. And, you know, a little background, eBusiness we started in the year 2001. And we went out to businesses and asked them, you know, and this is 2000, and asked them what are the skill sets that you need in this environment, in this new century. And the three skill sets that we found were teamwork, project management, and presentation skills. All kind of soft skills. And you know, they were saying you can't teach soft skills in the classroom. And we were going, oh, okay, well, we're going to do it anyway. And so really we focused here on teamwork. And at that time, I said, okay, I'll just pull something off the shelf. And there was nothing on the shelf except for military, sports, and sort of something like Outward Bound. And so we really thought that that would be an important thing to look at. And so it's been, you know, 10 years since then, and a lot's happened. Now teamwork is much more expected in the classroom. But it's still not taught, you know, how do you do, and teamwork and projects go together. And then you get your presentation skills. So that's what this class is really looking at clarifying what that is. And so students will create and implement team projects and present reports on successes and challenges. Because, you know, they're going to learn something. Whether they succeed or whether they don't succeed, there's always some lesson in there. And so the real world is, you know, companies are looking for those skill sets and students need to develop those skills. So I'm putting them in a scenario that says, you know, you are a professional working in a professional business and you have a client who's just, or an opportunity that's just walked in the door. Now students will go to this because they like to think of themselves as consultants. And so I'm saying, you know, and I'm trying to make it here, and this is probably good for this year, but not next year because it's not an election year. And so this scenario will change. And basically I'm saying, you know, you've got a project in front of you and a deadline. And you also have career opportunities in front of you, and not just you, but your client as well. And so if you do well, the client's going to do well, and if they do well, and so there's a lot of different levels of teaching there. And so really, you know, what I'm saying is, here's your challenge, but your task is what will you tell them, when will you tell them this, and how will you tell them this? And so you have to decide what the problem is, what solution you're going to give, when you're going to give it, because deadlines are really, really key in this environment. And the faster you respond and the more comprehensively you respond, the better. And also, how are you going to tell them? Are you going to tell them face-to-face? Are you going to tell them online? Are you going to tell them? And so there's a lot of decisions that they need to make in there. And I've divided the tasks primarily into 4 different phases. First is the planning stage. And planning stage is, you know, most of the times when I go to students and I give them a project, they jump right to tactics. You know, they forget about planning, they forget about strategy. What am I going to do? You know, well, think about it a little bit first, and let's go through the planning stage. And so you've got the planning stage, and I take it apart and divide it into 6 steps, and really force them to spend time on that. You know, what is your objective? Is it clear? Is it clearly stated? Is it achievable? Is it doable? And then we move into the doing phase, the implementation phase, based on their planning. And so they'll be put into teams, usually of 5 to 7, it could be bigger, and they'll be having to discuss with each other what are the best practices for online teamwork. And they can go to their relatives, they can go to professionals, they can go online, they can go to the library, they can look everywhere and under every single rock that's possible. And they need to then take a look at everything out there and divide it into 7 to 10 steps that they think are the best. And remember, you've got 5 different people, and we all know what community college students are like. They're everywhere. And the bigger the diversity on the team, the better, because they're going to have to agree. And that's the key. They're going to have to agree on what they're going to do. So those are the different phases that they're going to have to go through. And a lot of this course is focused on what role are you going to play on the team. And you know, in the facilitator's guide, that's really important because each student goes into a team project with a strength that they're better at than anything else. And it's really encouraging them to claim their strengths during the process and to do that role and to play that role for the team. And it's very important in how you create the teams. Do you have a writer on the team? Do you have a communicator on the team? Do you have a web person on the team? Do you have a technology? Do you have a presentation? And so it really is careful as to who your team members are becomes key in how you manage that team. Who's the team leader? What are the characteristics you want from a team leader? What are the expectations that the team leader has of the players on the team? And so all of this has to be planned out before the implementation happens. And the rubrics, you know, every single step you're going to get points. But you have to work together as a team. How you choose to go about it as a team is up to the students. I mean, when the final projects are presented at the end of class, and there will be several presentations in the middle, they're going to look very different. And the recommendations are going to be very different as they are in the real world. So I was really excited about this project. It helped me put down a lot of things and clarify a lot of things and learn a lot of new things in the process. Are there any questions? Yes.
We worked on trying to figure out soft skills. We talked with Signe Olston, Godfrey of Olston's employment agency, and she was saying that soft skills is something that people need. How are you going to test that? How are you going to evaluate the soft skill component?
Well, you evaluate it through observation. A lot of it is through observation. This is why when I went into this, I was thinking, I want this to be an online class, but I found out it really isn't an online class. It's a face-to-face class, and that sort of clarified that for me. And also you have the students evaluate each other. Like, for example, I don't say you have to evaluate, everybody has to evaluate at the same time because everybody's different, but if I see problems on a team, and it's not hard to see, you can see if they're, and I also give a lot of class time for teamwork. So I put a lot of my stuff online and allow the class time for the teams to work together so I can watch them. And if there's a problem, then I will perhaps give the entire class an assessment to assess your team members and then open that for discussion and say, we need to work on this and this isn't working. And so there are tools that you can use, and it's not as challenging as you may think it is once you start addressing it. Any other questions?
I don't have a
Anybody else want to say they don't have any questions?
When did you come to the conclusion that it was an on-the-ground class?
Well, I've always suspected that it was, but I wanted to make it, I really did want to make it online, and I think I came to that conclusion in February. When I started working on the Facilitator's Handbook, I realized that it has to be a class-to-class, and you have to see it. You have to see it, you have to see that interaction, especially as sort of like an introductory to teamwork class. Perhaps as you work on teams more and more frequently, it can go into an online structure, but so much of it is communications and interpersonal relationships.
So maybe hybrid?
Hybrid is good, but I still would go with face-to-face because the #1 challenge I find for students in meeting as a team is that finding the time and the place that they can all be together. And having a classroom environment gives them that. And so it's not so much for me as it is for the students that gives them the same time. And if they choose not to meet, they can choose not to meet. But it is kind of like meeting time instead of class time.
I just wanted to comment, my brother works completely online, and he's a programmer for American Express and has to do teamwork all the time, and they never meet. And one of the biggest problems, he said, was just what you're talking about in an online environment. So there's definitely a need for an online because a lot of companies are moving to this. So there still are skills for students that need to be able to work in a team environment that's online.
Yeah, it's moving in that direction.